Once upon a time, in a grand and golden city nestled between mountains and rivers, there lived an emperor who was so obsessed with his wardrobe that he spent all the kingdom's resources dressing himself. Unlike other rulers who busied themselves with matters of war, trade, or diplomacy, this emperor cared for only one thing: wearing the finest clothes and displaying them to his subjects. He changed his outfit nearly every hour, and the royal wardrobe was larger than the palace library. Every day, tailors, jewelers, and perfumers lined the halls waiting for his approval or rejection. When the emperor went out in public, it was not to inspect troops or meet with advisors, but to parade through the city in splendid attire. The people, though burdened with taxes and weary of the emperor's extravagance, were too afraid or too polite to object. They cheered dutifully, complimenting his latest silks or embroideries as required. Then, one day, two strangers arrived at the city gates. They wore mismatched robes, their fingers covered in rings, and they claimed to be master weavers from a faraway land. The news of their arrival traveled quickly through the capital, and before long the emperor summoned them to the palace. The elder of the two, a wiry man with clever eyes, bowed deeply. "Your Majesty," he said, "we weave the most exquisite cloth ever to grace mortal eyes. But it is not merely beautiful, it has magical properties." "Magical?" The emperor leaned forward eagerly. "Yes," said the second man, a plump fellow with hands always clasped behind his back. "The fabric is invisible to anyone who is unfit for their position or hopelessly foolish." The emperor blinked, then smiled broadly. "Marvelous. With such a cloth, I shall be able to distinguish the wise from the incompetent in my court. I will wear a robe made of this cloth at my next parade." The entire court buzzed with nervous excitement. The emperor gave the impostors a bag of gold coins and commanded that they begin work at once. The two tricksters were given a chamber in the palace to set up their looms. They demanded the finest silken threads of gold and promptly hid them away or sold them on the black market. In the workshop, they set up empty looms and pretended to weave from morning till night. Miming the gestures of skilled craftsmen, curious eyes peered in now and then, but no one dared say they saw nothing. After all, if the fabric was invisible to fools or those unworthy of their positions, who would risk their reputation? The emperor, however, grew impatient and wished to see the progress. But unsure if he could see the cloth himself, he sent his trusted minister, Lord Alban, a wise and honest man, to inspect the work. Lord Alban arrived at the chamber, bowed politely, and looked toward the looms. He saw nothing but air. His heart raced. Was he a fool, unworthy of his role? He dared not say so. "What do you think, Lord Alban?" asked the elder weaver with a sly grin. "It is magnificent," Lord Alban said slowly. "Such fine texture, such radiant colors. I can't wait to see it completed." The emperor beamed when he heard this. "Splendid. I shall send my High Chancellor next." And so the High Chancellor, a pompous man who prided himself on his taste and judgment, was sent to examine the cloth. He too saw nothing but nodded eagerly, praising the brilliance of the design. Word spread through the court. The emperor's new clothes would be the most exquisite garments in history. At last, the day arrived. The weavers declared the clothes finished and presented them, though there was nothing to present. They mimed lifting the robes, draping them over the emperor's shoulders, and adjusting invisible sleeves. The emperor stood on a dais, naked except for his undergarments. He squinted at the mirror, but said nothing. If his advisors could see the clothes, then surely he must as well. He could not admit otherwise. "How light it feels," he exclaimed. "I've never worn anything so comfortable." His attendants clapped and bowed, exclaiming over the invisible finery. "Shall I wear it to the grand procession?" he asked. "Your Majesty," said the elder trickster, "it would be an honor." And so the emperor marched through the city streets, his crown atop his head, his body exposed to the wind and sun. The townsfolk lined the roads, stunned by the sight, but none dared say what they saw or didn't see. Instead, they clapped, murmuring praises, fearing to be thought fools. All except one. A small child perched on his father's shoulders squinted and shouted, "But he's not wearing anything at all." A hush fell over the crowd. Faces turned. The emperor stiffened. The ministers flushed. Then, like a wave, whispers surged through the people. "He's naked. The child is right." The emperor faltered in his step. He heard the voices growing louder. He glanced sideways at his advisors, who were pale and silent. His first instinct was to run, to flee to the safety of the palace, but pride rooted his feet to the cobblestones. "I must carry on," he thought, "to preserve what dignity I can." And so he lifted his chin and walked slowly to the palace as the people laughed, some in joy, some in shame. That should have been the end of it, but stories rarely end so simply. The two impostors vanished before the emperor returned to the palace. By the time guards were sent to arrest them, their chamber was empty and the gold was gone. Furious and humiliated, the emperor locked himself in his private apartments. He refused to see anyone for 3 days. When he emerged, he was changed not in dress, but in demeanor. His hair, once oiled and jeweled, hung plainly. His robe was dark and simple. He walked slowly to the council chamber and called his advisors together. "I have been a fool," he said, without preamble. "Worse, I made a kingdom bow to my foolishness." No one spoke. They waited. "From this day forward," he continued, "we will stop pretending. We will stop measuring worth by show and display. We will govern with truth, no matter how uncomfortable it is." Lord Alban stepped forward. "Then let me speak truthfully, Your Majesty. The people suffer under heavy taxes while the palace grows ever richer." The emperor nodded. "Then we must change that." The court was stunned, but it was no bluff. In the weeks that followed, the emperor canceled his parade. He sold half his wardrobe to raise funds for the poor. He dismissed the sycophants in his court and promoted those who dared speak truth. He invested in rebuilding farms, supporting merchants, and educating children. He even commissioned a statue not of himself, but of the child who spoke the truth. He never again wore extravagant clothes. Instead, he wore the simplest garments and reminded his people, truth, like good cloth, does not need gold to be strong. And in time, the kingdom flourished not because of the clothes they wore, but because of the honesty they embraced. Subscribe for more videos and press the bell icon to get new updates. Also like the video and share to your friends.